Welcome everyone to today's panel. My name is Julius Hartmann and I'm delighted to guide you through this panel today. We are addressing a topic that could hardly be more timely or more relevant, AI as a location factor. The Mittelstand, just described as the backbone of our economy, is also facing a myriad of challenges, increasing cost pressure, growing shortage of skilled labor, increasing security and regulatory requirements. But many see AI as a solution. According to our last Bitkom study, 81% of German companies consider AI to be the most important technology of our time. However, so far, we're only seeing adoption rates of around 50% in the Mittelstand. Why is that, and how can the Mittelstand further its competitiveness? I'm looking forward to an exciting exchange with our panelists, and please welcome them with a big round of applause. On the far right, Dr. Jonas Soluk. He has a family business background and has been working with SMEs on their digital transformation for over 15 years. He also represents the association Die Familienunternehmer today. We have Marek Janetzke. He's the former CEO of Flightride. He has deep expertise in implementing AI in legal contexts and is now driving automation through his startup, Lucid Labs. We have Professor Dr. Oliver Thomas. He's an AI researcher at the DFKI. He's an entrepreneur, and he's the head of the Green AI Hub Mittelstand, a support project funded by the Federal Ministry of the Environment. And last but not least, our Mittelständler, Martin May. He is Director of Technology and Innovation Management at SCHUNK SE, and he is a strong voice for the Mittelstand through the initiative Next Level Mittelstand. We're starting off with an important topic, which is the status quo of AI in SMEs in the Mittelstand. And I think we could hardly have a better expert for this topic first here. Dr. Soluk, in your habilitation, you researched the AI adoption of the Mittelstand. Why is it necessary for us to discuss the Mittelstand's AI adoption separately from larger companies?
That's a good question. Thank you so much. I think Mittelstand firms are not just smaller corporations, right? Comparing them to, for instance, DAX corporates or something like that. Mittelstand firms, they have unique characteristics and unique dynamics that have to be considered when talking about novel technologies and AI. For instance, the family influence, right? So be it an active family management that is on board, or be it a passive family ownership. So the owning family has a strong influence on how decisions, also technology adoption decisions, are made in those organizations. So that's an important factor. This family influence, due to the transgenerational entrepreneurship that is happening in the Mittelstand context, also create, for instance, a long-term orientation and also a strategic stamina in Mittelstand firms, right? So for instance, when it comes to AI adoption, research shows that the initial buy-in, so to speak, for the novel technology, that's a bit slower in Mittelstand firms, right? But when this decision is being done, so to speak, and when the family, the owning family, has committed to technology or also to a tool, etc., then we see that it's really a stamina and a strong commitment that we can observe in Mittelstand firms, right? So this is an interesting point, and due to other unique characteristics, for instance, the very strong ties to suppliers, customers, etc., also the niche markets Mittelstand firms are operating in. Of course, we need a different and own AI playbook compared to larger corporates.
I think very, very good points, especially the stamina points and the long-term horizon. However, for the Mittelstand, there's also a bit of limited budgets and resources, just due to the size already. So, Mr. Janetzke, what should be the realistic ambition of these Mittelstand players with regards to AI, and where do you think they should prioritize investment?
So what I see that in many cases, companies already have an internal chatbot in place, but then it often lacks enablement. So Copilot is in place, but it's not properly used. So I think there is a big opportunity in really enabling everyone in the company to really make use of Gen AI tools in their everyday work, which will then also enable the building of bigger capabilities in the organization and more awareness. So I think it's very important for everyone to get a taste of what's possible with Gen AI, to then also implement it in the processes. So I also see that many companies try to start with big, shiny pilots, where I think the real ROI is rather in optimizing background processes and building agents that really help optimize unsexy background processes. So I would say good ambition is to really start with cases where you can have a very clear ROI, start small, iterate, get the agents and the AI tools in the hands of the people who are close to the operational processes, and then iterate with feedback. And I think often also it's a bit of a cultural adaptation that people have to get used to rethink processes, how they can work together with AI. And I think for that it's very helpful to just start small.
Yeah. In our discussions, we also talked about starting small, kind of the broad-based, what you called it, then the next level being to get into very specific processes. And the third, kind of the king's discipline of AI adoption would be to bring out new AI products. Now SCHUNK is, I think, a rather advanced adapter of AI. Looking at the practice, Mr. May, from SCHUNK's experience, what should be the ambition be, and what is your own ambition? How far have you come?
Well, okay, so it's hard. I mean, I can talk about our own ambition and basically how that translates to the future. So we started honestly, we started AI with a focus on products, because I mean that's where most companies start off, saying that I build products, I want to make them smart, intelligent, and that's the first step. But however, it turned out that what we're focusing right now, because our products to some extent they start being intelligent, we've got some AI functions in the products integrated. What we're focusing on right now is what you mentioned, is the processes in the background. So with the appearance of ChatGPT, and we had very early on a SCHUNK GPT, which is cured, so we don't send data to OpenAI and so on. So we came up with a framework, making sure that people understand the opportunities that come with that. And so the focus right now is that we're looking more into the processes in the background, as you mentioned. How can we speed up the purchases processes, the service processes, and all those. However, you mentioned the term ROI. That is something we don't talk about it right now, because I think it's the wrong starting point, saying that we need a return on investment immediately, because that's very unclear. So what we started to do is really making sure people understand the opportunities that come with AI, and people start playing with that. And indeed, the most interesting, the coolest applications are not the ones we've planned with at the very beginning, but it's now the employees start really with the doing, find out that it's really helpful in a lot of aspects that we have not targeted first. Of course, everybody uses AI in the marketing terms when it. You write your post with AI, which basically I recommend don't do that, because it's really boring. AI is not as creative as people think. So, but we started with that, and now the most promising use cases, they turned up in purchase, in the automatic handling of some of the emails and stuff, which we never came up. Indeed, my personal experience, the best one was when somebody came up and said, "Did you get an email about your whatever remaining vacation days?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And then she said, "I didn't send it." And I was like, "Oh, well, I got it from you." And then she explained how she came up with a process, an agent, which generates that email indicating how many vacation days are left. And those are the trigger points. And the ambition we have, because that was the question, is that we want to make sure that it's our employees that come up with the ideas, and they start playing with that. Of course, we need afterwards the infrastructure, making that robust and scalable in some way. But that is where I think even the smaller companies should focus at, because if you talk to SMEs, and we're talking about SMEs, we've got a huge burden in administration, and I'm not. It's not the usual thing that we have to come down with bureaucracy. No, of course we have to, but indeed we should rather use AI for the simplification within the companies, and that is what we have to make sure that the SMEs understand. They need some knowledge, they need some understanding, and they need the right tools for doing so. And I'm not talking about Copilot, which I'm not the biggest fan of. but that's basically, you know, the ambition. It has to go really into the entire company, define the different fields. As I said, we started not with the wrong one, but we really thought the products need to be smart and intelligent in the first place. Yes, of course they have to, but you've got a much bigger impact when you look into the background processes, the purchasing, all the other processes. Sorry, I spoke too long, I guess.
No, I think that very, very important points, and also hearing how this translates into practice at SCHUNK. We had a bit of a discussion around setting the initial strategy versus the single use cases. I think we've heard a lot around, Marek said, just get started. Where do you see this on the scale? Should a SME set its AI strategy, or should it just get started? Also to the round, if there's.
So, I mean, what does it mean having an AI strategy? The AI strategy has to be that make sure that people understand the opportunities in the technology. Mm-hmm. What is behind what is way more important, and I guess we come to that afterwards, is that if you want to do anything with AI, make sure that your data is right. Sorry for everybody knows that, but shit in, shit out. If the data is bad, you cannot do anything with any smart process that does not work. And that is indeed the biggest hurdle we've got right now, that we have a lot of data, it's not curated, we've got no data governance in place yet. So from that perspective, if you're talking about the AI strategy, is to make sure that you've got all the things in place that enables you to do AI. And that for now is in a large extent in the smaller companies is missing. But the first step is really make sure that your data is accurate. And I will, if you're staying outside, I can tell you a couple of really funny stories about how we have been working over the last couple of years and how we see the opportunities in the future. But data is the real issue. The data is there, but it's not curated, it's not validated, and it's not clean, basically. And that is what have to be worked out. And then so when the strategy needs to be clear, that you have to understand what you need. And the second point is really, don't think too much about the ROIs, just start working and figure out what works best for you.
I think regarding the data, you can also go the other way around by just first identifying potential use cases and then figuring out what data you need, and then seeing where you need to clean up data, where you perhaps also need to collect additional data. And in many cases, if we talk about background processes, many of those background processes are not so unique in every company. So if you think about a pre-accounting process where you process invoices, right? Perhaps you don't even need so much company-specific data in terms of automating processes with Gen AI. In my opinion, often a golden data set of like 50 or 100 or 200 well-curated examples can already go a long way to validate if the use case brings value, and then you can think about integrating better data and more feedback loops afterwards. I think that's also a strategy, at least that I've seen working.
Yeah. I think Professor Thomas, you've also seen quite a lot of use cases in your work with Green AI Hub Mittelstand. Lots of use cases, POCs that we talked about. Could you give us a quick idea of what Green AI Hub Mittelstand does, and then also give us a bit of an input which use cases you're seeing being implemented in the Mittelstand at the moment?
Yes, I'm in this research and business field AI for now 25 years, so I've seen a lot of cases, and this is, I want to add to the last question, that this is the main part that we do in our daily business. There is nothing changed with AI in the meaning that there is an indirect effect from the IT to the process, then to the business model of the customer. And what you find out is that you have to meet at the business processes, and the effect is from AI to the process and then to the business model. So what we are doing also in the Green AI App is discussing with the companies and all the employees in order to find out what their problem is, and then find out what a use case can be for them. And this use case know-how for implementing AI to their business processes is the most important part to get a match, to find out what that could be. And of course, you need a strategy. We know some other words for that. For me, for example, I call it a management approach, and the strategy is a part of it. But then you find out what a good solution with AI could be for them. I have a lot of cases seen in the last years. We implemented, for example, for a manufacturer and a small medium-sized company with 650 employees, a so-called bid or no bid decision. They want to decide if they go to a tender process or not, which is quite important for them. It took a week to make this decision. They can produce everything, but they need this decision. There's no employees that can do that. We now reduce this process from, let's say, 1 week to a few minutes. So therefore, this is unbelievable. In some other projects, we made consulting for, in the healthcare sector, digitalization of facility management up to 30%, increasing of efficiency. So that's a really important thing. And the Green AI Mittelstand does exactly this, so to find out what the efficiency can be. And Green AI means not AI for environment, but AI for increasing efficiency, reducing the amount of resources and material that you use for production process, for example. And we are quite near to these processes, and I think it's a good, also like a good blueprint for other funding processes for the ministry.
Great, thank you for the perspective. I think we talked a lot about the use cases, some of them more in the back office, some of the ones you just named also very specific to the processes of, for example, the manufacturing industry. Should all of these Mittelstand firms build everything themselves? Should they sometimes maybe just wait for the solution to appear on the market?
That's a hard question. It's not easy to find out. That's the make or buy decision. You have to find out. That's part of the strategy that you will find out with AI. But there are other things. You have the field of regulatory, what you need, what solutions you want to find out. It's some sort of a level for the mid-sized companies to find out what their strategy, for example, is. But there is also the education for AI. No, not anybody in the company should be an AI expert, for example. There is the main field of for the applications and the infrastructure also. And the last part, where is the data and where comes the AI from? That is the most important part. So all together, with the decision for make or buy, that is quite important. But you must find the answer. And once again, the most important part is to find out what are the good solutions for mid-sized companies. It's completely different, as was mentioned before. And we like to call it also like a cross-innovation, because for AI, for example, it does not matter in what branch it is. You can use an AI system, for example, from production, and put it into a service system, for example. That is possible. And that is a main part of our work, what we do in our daily business, discussing what good use cases for mid-sized companies are.
Yeah, I think moving on to how we can then put these into practice, and there's of course a lot of a technical perspective on that as well. And I think Mr. Janetzke, you're our expert on this panel for this topic. A lot of Mittelstand companies have a lot of legacy technology, maybe not SCHUNK. But do they need to fix this first to begin their AI journey, or can they just get started?
Mm-hmm. So, and maybe adding to what you said quickly. So, I think the most promising investments are where when you can actually use AI agents to automate industry or company-specific processes, because then you can gain a competitive advantage. Whereas, in my opinion, many standard processes like invoice pre-accounting, they will become features of most of the, at least modern standard software anyway. So I think it makes a lot of sense to look at the roadmap and not build something that will be something default in 1 or 2 years anyway. And then look at where you can really get an advantage. And to your question with regards of technology, in my view, the technology is in many cases already there. It's also there are a lot of opportunities to connect legacy systems through APIs, through robotic process automation. I think computer use agents will enable to make computer use even easier in a few years and give even better connections to legacy software. And then we also have the model context protocol, which also allows to integrate agents more and more as a universal connecting protocol, at least for now. So I see actually more the organizational challenges that what I observe, it's a new way of thinking about something, thinking about delegating something to an IT system, because it's not deterministic. Usually if you think about automating something, you know the outcome will always be the same, except for traditional machine learning. Whereas if we delegate something to an Gen AI agent, it's more like delegating it to a colleague. Also a human is not always right, and the human needs some kind of clear guidelines, maybe a competence level that cannot be exceeded before it's escalated to someone human who takes the decision. And I think, this is also an organizational challenge. How can we work together midterm between human experts and agents that use repetitive processes, and how do we implement human-in-the-loop systems that at some point the AI agent escalates something. I think in the beginning, in many cases, we have, let's say, a smaller level autonomy, and then over time, the level of autonomy of agents will increase once we feel confident that they do the tasks reliably.
Yeah, let me add on this. That is quite interesting what you said, because we have a mid-sized customer right now with 250 million euros revenue. They grew up and they have 3 ERP systems. And one of the main results of our project is that they stay with these systems. 5 or 10 years ago, I'm a Wirtschaftsinformatik, I'm doing business information systems. Normally would have to integrate them. That it's like the thinking about 90s. No? Integrate data and the ERP systems, and they stay with them. And now they're setting up an AI strategy with using these decentralized data in their end-to-end integration with the AI engine and the MCP protocol. It's absolutely interesting. So it's a complete, a new way of thinking about implementing systems for companies, not integrating the data first, but try to use decentralized database.
I think that's a really exciting approach to get away from the legacy technology and see how things can get done without having to touch too much of that. Mr. May, I already kind of
I like the idea, and indeed, well, if you look at, I mean, we all have all the different waves, sometimes centralized, decentralized, centralized, decentralized. Now we're in a phase, I guess, we're going into that decentralized mode, and you're just right. I mean, and that's what I said when I said get your data right. Doesn't mean that you put everything in one database and make a data lake and everything is happy. No. But you need the clear understanding, where's my data, what's the format, what's the interface to get into that, how can I build my agents automatically, and that is the trick, and that is the simplification for the future. So also talking about the skills, what do you need? You don't need the AI specialist in the sense that who understands all the different algorithms, but you need, I call it the data plumber, who is able to put up an IT system that is able to use all the interfaces that are available, and make sure that data governance could be implemented and so on. So those are the things that are necessary, but you building that on all the different legacy systems, that is the smart way of doing that. And very honestly, when you talk to an organization and you come to whoever that is, whether that's the guy who's leading the production or is the guy who's running whatever, who's doing the purchases, if you ask them to change the system because there's a better way of doing that, it will end up, the people will say no. The trick is to say that you keep doing what you've done before, just make sure that I need an interface into your system. And I need an understanding what I'm going to find in the data, and then I can build my AI, whatever kind of engine on top of that. That is the only way of really getting the people involved. And the example is really sometimes employees pop up and they come with the greatest ideas we never had in mind. So keep the legacy system as much as possible. Of course, get rid of the ones that are obsolete, that are unsecure. I'm from Maschinenbau, so I know exactly what it means running Windows 95 in production environment. So that it's not what you should do, but it's there. So it's better really building something on top of that, which is way more meaningful and interesting.
Yeah, but exactly what you said, we discussed a long time ago, about 10, 50 years, what the services, the new services could be for the legacy system, but the improvement was, there was no improvement. And that is completely different right now with AI systems, because you add one service for a legacy system, but you have to create the API. And now with AI, you can some sort of build like a layer that understands what in this databases is, and then support the processes for the companies. It's like a different way of thinking about, we called it the service-oriented architecture in former times. Yeah? And that was a nice idea, but it did not work, because you just set up the services instead of the legacy system, but the architecture was nearly the same. Yeah. And that is now what changed with the AI applications and these sort of, like, let's say, agent or whatever layer. I don't like the term, but in order to just remark it, it's another way of thinking about implementing the system.
I think a really good deep dive on the technological challenges. However, we also touched a bit already on the topics of governance, people, skills that are needed in this new age. Dr. Soluk, from an organizational perspective, what needs to be considered?
So I fully agree that the main issues, the main impediments stem from this organizational perspective, right? So compared to the technology side of the debate. I also agree that not everyone has to be the fully fledged AI expert within the Mittelstand organizations, right? However, we need someone or a small team who's in charge, right? And to ask the right question, etc. So due to the resource constraints, Mittelstand firms often do not have these expert pools, even small teams, right? 3, 4, 5 experts who are in charge of the AI transformation. And this is really an issue, right? So what we see is that the topic of AI literacy and enabling the organization to develop skills related to data and AI on different levels, this is really of increasing importance. And we also have to reflect on different levels, right? So we have an expert team with top-notch expertise, hopefully, and then we have maybe more decentralized teams, right? Within, I don't know, close to the production or to the, I don't know, sales side of the organization. And they also have at least some level of understanding, right, on data and AI. And so this combination of experts and, let's say, partially enabled workforce, I think this is something where Mittelstand firms really can build on. We also see resistance to change, right, when it comes to AI adoption. So some opponents, single persons, maybe smaller teams, who are a little bit skeptical. How can we integrate them? Of course, we can co-create AI use cases. We can integrate them into the discussion, make them part of the success story and part of this AI transformation. Let them shine, maybe. And yeah, so these are also some organizational aspects that we definitely have to consider when talking about AI in Mittelstand firms.
Absolutely. There's a lot of, I think, a lot to do technologically, organizationally. There's a lot of cries often in Germany for government support. Do we need such support? Is the Green AI Hub an example of how such support can be very pragmatic and really help small Mittelstand companies with these challenges?
I think it is. It is not like a theoretical approach, it's very applied. There is a funding via the Ministry for Environmental, and we worked strong together with a project agency, the SCHUNK here in Berlin. And this funding goes not to the companies that are implementing the AI system or improving their processes. It goes to our researchers that are doing the implementation. And that is a new way of combining, let's say, research in AI with practical implementation. And I think it's a blueprint for funding processes in Germany, maybe for other ministries as well. And because we all know that there is a lot of funding in Germany, but we do not ask what happens with this funding and what is the effort of doing it. And the Green AI is a perfect example for this, doing it with efficiency, resource efficiency applications. Of course, that is is part of the big AI field, but with concrete applications for companies that are useful. And that is, for me, one perfect combination of research and practice.
Maybe one addition to the policy aspect or dimension of this discussion. Mittelstand firms are all about trust, right? Trusting your customers, your suppliers, maybe also the competitors, service organizations, associations, etc. And so I think this trust aspect is also super critical when it comes to data and AI legislation, right? So to have trust in the long-term commitment that Mittelstand firms really can rely on data and AI legislation, and that their investments will also pay off eventually, right? This is super important. And so reliable policy frameworks when it comes to data sharing, data protection, etc. is super critical, especially in Mittelstand firms.
I want to jump on that one because besides my role within SCHUNK, we also started an initiative called Next Level Mittelstand.
Yep.
And that is exactly with a goal, because we know the best way of spreading an idea is making sure that it comes not, sorry to say that, from the big industries or from the suppliers, but if it comes from a colleague of you. And that basically means, in German, is from Mittelstand for the Mittelstand. So basically, if you've got, even if a competitor does something within AI and you know about that, that is the best trigger, that is the best motivation of making sure that you're going in the same direction. If I know that the company I'm working with is using AI in a purchase process, if I know that if another company, a partner of mine is using AI for whatever in production, and we share that information, and we're going to make sure that with that we're going to grow that environment, that is probably the best success factor we can have, and that's the way how we can really spread ideas. And we're using that, talking about that. I mean, you all heard about the billions of investment that is done in AI. AI will come. We come from, right now, the focus we had over the last couple of years is the data space, is making sure that people are able to share data. And yes, we need funding, because that is the amount of money people are not willing to spend. The SMEs, I can open up a new discussion right now. We are tired of saying we do pilots. If somebody comes up saying that, well, we can do a pilot with you, I stop the conversation. That's not what people are interested in. So we have to go beyond a pilot. We have to go into real deployment, and that's what we're talking right now to the government, that we need a direct funding of the companies for a real implementation. And the examples are the wall boxes. They have to be paid by the government. The smart meters have to be paid by the government, because that will enable the innovation behind. And same will apply to AI. So we need free access to data spaces. We need free access to digital identities. There's a lot of technology stuff going in the background. If a company have to take care about that one, that's a huge invest. And if that can be simplified, those will be the stepstones that we need for making sure that at the end the companies will have an easy integration in that new world. Because the corporations are in there. The Siemenses, the Bosches, the big corporations, they have got the amounts of money, and they know how to do that. And if you look at Catena X, if the automotive industry, they want to go into a digital supply chain, they can impose that. But it's a big hurdle for the small companies implementing those interfaces, because then you need a supplier, it costs a lot of money, and it slows down the innovation. So we need that support, and we are fighting for that support, making sure that first step into those developments will be funded by the government. Sorry, I hope, but we can go on for hours.
It's a very good closing remark, actually. Let's move toward. Let's go beyond the pilots, is what you're saying. Let's give everyone a short round of maybe 30 seconds for the Mittelstand. What has to happen now for us to advance? Let's start with Dr. Soluk.
Great question. So my ad hoc response would be look out for partners, right? So you don't have to develop everything on your own internally. So this term open innovation, I think Henry Chesbrough coined it 20 years ago. So this concept is not new, but especially important when it comes to data and AI. So look out for great suppliers, customers, competitors, associations like the Bitkom or the Die Familienunternehmer Association. They can really help you, and reach out to them, have casual talks, discussions, and develop those casual discussions into real, not pilots, but real deployment projects that create long-lasting value.
Yeah, I think knowledge worker processes can be automated with AI agents already today quite quickly. So yeah, my recommendation is just get started. In many cases, you can build an agent in 30 to 60 days and already experience and feel and get a taste of what it means. And as a second recommendation is start collecting the data that you maybe don't collect yet. So when we think about sales automation, it perhaps makes sense to transcribe every call so that in 1 or 2 years you have all the data to build an agent with that.
Yeah, by me some general remarks on the discussion we often have about the question why we don't have this Silicon Valley feeling in Berlin, Germany, whatever. And we often ask why AI does not come from Europe or from Germany. For example, my easy answer is the wrong question. Because we know that all these operating systems, the computers, the MP3 standard, virtual reality, augmented reality, and so on, all these hardware and software components are maybe invented in Germany, maybe in Europe, but the commercialization is done in the USA and China, wherever. So my answer is not answer this question, but accept this and doing the right applications for the Mittelstand. In one sentence, my remark for more applied instead of made in Germany with AI.
Great.
I mean, yeah, I talked a lot about, you mentioned data, so the recommendations really make sure that you have a clear understanding where's your data, what's your data, make sure that you understand that in your company you get access to that information. Looking for partnership, go out for the networks. There's all the Familienunternehmer, there's Next Level Mittelstand, there's Green AI, there's a lot of these organizations. Use the time, it's not time wasted, at least we hope so. In what you mentioned, what we're trying to do with the Next Level Mittelstand is really not talking about theory, it's going into very immediately into practice. There are so many challenges out and we have to face them, and that's probably the approaches of get your data ready, talk to the partners, and really just do it, just dare it, because there's a lot of opportunities in that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.